For those of you who are not familiar, what you've just witnessed on the screen is a pivotal moment in one of my most favorite movies of all time, The Matrix. The Matrix depicts a dystopian future in which all of humanity is unknowingly trapped inside a simulated reality. So this church, our homes, where we go grocery shopping, where we eat lunch and dinner, the restaurants, everything is basically a computer program. But we as humans don't know that. That's what this movie is about. Just so you have a sense of the kind of movies I like to watch. Okay. Now, Neo, played by Keanu Reeves, who you just saw, seems to have known for a while that something is not quite right in the world. Like, he gets that, but he's not quite sure what it is. And so, because he can't quite put his finger on it, he keeps asking over and over and over again, and asking and searching and asking and searching until he encounters an opportunity, which you don't actually see in the clip. He realizes that he's supposed to be someplace. And so he goes, encounters Trinity, who you also saw in the clip, who reminds him that it is good that he's asking the seminal question in the movie: what is the Matrix? His question leads to a season of enlightenment, really, for him, where he begins to understand himself and the Matrix, what's most important in life, and how to shift power from the machine city — the machines are the ones making all of this happen — to the one remaining human city, Zion. I would encourage everyone to go check out this movie. It's pretty great. There are actually 4 of them now. Very recently, there was The Matrix Resurrection, which is actually pretty good. What I love most about The Matrix, other than, all the computer-generated dream world stuff, was the constant quest for understanding the truth about themselves as humans, what connected them, what bound them together, what drove them to be who they needed to be to preserve what remained of life in that last city. So naturally, as I was preparing for our time today, I couldn't help but think about that scene and this movie and this constant quest to move forward in life. I think part of our quest to grow as Unitarian Universalists begins and continues with who and when and how we ask meaningful questions. Questions about life and death, about one another's beliefs, about how we understand ourselves in the context of a faith that is supposed to center love, justice, and liberation, but doesn't always do that as well as we might like for it to. We don't show up the same or have the same ideas about how to live this life, nor should we. But what helps a church live into the idea of beloved community is how well it can hold the realities of people's differing opinions and beliefs and needs. It's the questions that drive us. And so I gave folks an opportunity to ask some questions today. And I will answer them as best I can. Please know that I don't know is an acceptable answer. Okay? That's important. It's okay to not know. We don't know everything, and we're not ever going to. Much to the dismay of many. So what I did was I gave folks an opportunity. And let me also just say, you ministers do this all the time. I don't know if Reverend TJ ever did it here, or any ministers have done it here in the past, but it happens a lot that there is an Ask the Minister Sunday. And so I'm actually really excited that the very first Ask the Minister Sunday I will have ever done in my life is right here. This is the first time I've done this. I'm maybe a little nervous, but we're going to be okay. I actually got a lot of questions over email. And so I'm going to incorporate a lot of those, but I'm curious if anybody in here actually has any questions or has a question, a burning question. No pressure if there aren't any. I have plenty right here. But I see that there are a few folks who might have questions, so that's great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask a few from here, and then I'm going to check out these questions out here and see what we're doing. Does that sound good to everybody? All right. Feel free to, hoop and holler or cry or whatever needs to happen, however you're feeling about my answer. And if you have a follow-up to the answer, that's okay too. We'll see what we can do. We're not going to be here all day. We're not going to be here all day. In fact, you know what? Who wants to help me keep time? Do you want to do that, Martine? Does anybody want to help me do that? Who has a phone? Because this is me. I think, Eleanor, you up for it? Okay, Eleanor's up for it. I can be long-winded, and I want to get as many questions answered as possible. So I'm gonna ask Eleanor to give me 2 minutes per question, and I might listen to her if she tells me it's time to stop. How about that? Great. I want to start with the first question. The first question I got, I think it's really important that children ask questions. I got a really great question from Joe, who is not here, who is one of Eleanor's lovely kiddos. Joe asked me, did you know that unicorns are shiny, pretty, do magic, and zoom? Actually, I did know that. I absolutely knew that. You know how I knew that? Because I have a 6-year-old who has unicorns everywhere. There are unicorns in places that I'm kind of appalled by, but that's okay. That's okay. Yes. That is the only reason why I knew the answer to that, and I thought it was a great question to start us off with because it was a lovely question. Now, not everybody can be as shiny and pretty and magical as unicorns, which actually leads me to my next question, which is from Gabriel, and I don't know if Gabe is here. Is Gabe here? Oh, hi, Gabe. How you doing? Good to see you. So this is a question from Gabe. How do people? This was a good one. I need Gabe to know. I need all of you to know. This is probably a sermon. I wrote so much in response to this question. I had to back off a little bit. Okay. How do people coexist in spite of cultural differences and strong opinions? That's a good question, my friend. I think the way people coexist with cultural differences and strong differing opinions is to do 2 things. One is to acknowledge that it's true that there are cultural differences and strong opinions in a place, whether that's a church or anywhere else. I think the second thing, though, is that everyone has to be on the same page about the fact that that is good and worthwhile. A lot of communities do number one very easily. Most of the communities I've seen really struggle with that second part. Acknowledging that it is good and worthwhile. Acknowledging that it is good and worthwhile means that you're going to actually do some things differently to hold with care the reality that there are people with cultural differences and strong opinions. One of those things that folks can do, is to make changes that are necessary to keep people from feeling left out who might have a cultural difference that is outside of whatever the norm may be in that particular space, right? So just as an example, UU congregations, as I'm sure you all know, are predominantly white spaces. So when somebody Black, trans, and queer shows up, the culture might not meet what makes the most sense in my life or anyone else's life who might be like me. So what actually needs to shift in the space to make it better? That is one example. I'm going to get you in just a second. I saw you. Oh, it's time. Thank you. Lord, I was like, ooh, Eleanor has a question. No, Eleanor's trying to get me to stop talking. One other thing that I want to say, I want to say this because I think it's important relative to beloved community. As far as this goes, often folks get beloved community wrong in terms of how folks understand it. Beloved community is a goal. It's an idea, right? That was initially coined by Josiah Royce, I think, in the early 20th century. He was the founder of the Fellowship of Reconciliation. Look that up. It's really cool. Martin Luther King Jr. used that phrase a lot more. He was also a member of the Fellowship of Reconciliation. And one of the things that that King talked about a lot was, beloved community isn't this place where everybody's getting along harmoniously. That's not what it is. It is recognizing that there's going to be conflict and understanding that if everyone commits to nonviolence, conflict is easier to overcome. And I think recognizing that piece of it helps folks with number 2. Thank you for that question. And thank you for trying to keep me on track, Eleanor. Another really great question came from Margot, which was, can we have more stories about how differences are okay? Can we have more stories about how differences are okay? It's probably one of the best questions I got. Yeah. Can we do that? Can we do that in the music that we choose? Can we do that in the stories that we tell? Can we do that in the themes that we consider? Can we do that more? And so I'm going to get with Eleanor and Margot this week, and we're going to figure out a story to tell during our story for all ages about how differences are okay. So, yay, Margot. This is a good one. And I'm going to, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a little bit of the lead into the question and then ask the question. This was from Beth. What if we, and maybe I'm paraphrasing a little, what if we offered up a mantra as a community, something we might all say every single Sunday or at every committee meeting or event, would help us believe it's true that, and I quote, all who come in the spirit of goodwill are welcome here, unquote. Everyone hear that? All who come in the spirit of goodwill are welcome here. Would it impact our collective gesture or how we connect with everyone who comes through our doors? Would we come to embody that statement if we said it together every single Sunday? It's actually a really good question. The answer to that question, from my perspective, is maybe. We've begun to figure out that this is one of the biggest concerns actually about our 7 principles. And I specifically said 7 and not 8, and I'll say why in a minute. But folks can often recite those 7 principles. Like what? Like just rolls right off. But often have either no sense at all of how to actually live that out in the world, or you might have 10 people in a room who are interpreting one principle differently, right? So the answer to your question is maybe, because everyone could say all who come in the spirit of goodwill are welcome here, and every single person might have a very different idea about what welcome requires, right? And so if something like a mantra were going to be said in a congregation, if a congregation starts to do those kinds of things, which happens sometimes, some congregations read a covenant, say a covenant together, right? And I think it is really important for that community to also get really clear and be on the same page about what that statement is and means and requires. As long as everybody's on the same page and is willing to do the same things and consistently, then yeah. But only then. Just saying it, not so much. Thank you for that. I'm going to stop and see. I think, Jeff, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, that actually kind of relates to the last question. Start off with compassion, justice, and joy.
That's right. Right.
What do we mean by justice?
Yes. What do we mean by justice? That is such a really powerful and good question. And honestly, I want every congregation to go on retreat for days and days and days and have real clarity about what that means for them, right? I think depending on where the congregation is, depending on what's happening in the world, in their part of the world, there might be differing ideas about what justice ultimately means for that specific place. But in general, I tend to think of justice meaning equity as opposed to equality, right? equality, and sometimes folks use equality when they actually mean equity. Equality is everyone has the same stuff. There is not any one reason why anyone doesn't get that thing. Equity is every person has exactly what they need. So my need might be different from yours, but you're going to get what you need, and so am I. And the great disparities in our country and the world are really around equity, or lack thereof. There are folks who need resources of all kinds that are not getting them. And there are people in those same places who, quite frankly, have way too much. We just be plain about it. And so how do we ensure that there's equity? How do we ensure that there's care and accountability in all of the spaces where we exist as humans? But that's a very short definition of what I would say justice is. All right. I'm going to ask a question about, someone asked, some of these questions are about church and about community and justice seeking, and some of them are ask about me. How did you find your way to a UU church? Suzette, Tom, our amazing office administrator, asked me that question. How did I make my way to a UU church? Well, I was fascinated by Unitarian Universalism in seminary. That happened in seminary, and mostly because of a person named Jude Geiger and another person named Marisol Caballero. Jude and Marisol are now UU ministers. They became UU ministers long before I did. But I was fascinated with their understanding of faith, the deep questions that they would ask, and the fact that questions were actually good and welcome, right? You didn't have to believe anything in particular all the time, but you had to be clear in your belief in a way that leads you to love, justice, and liberation. And I was really fascinated by that. I had not heard of Unitarian Universalism before seminary. I became a UU probably in 2010, and that was Lelena Romero's fault. She was my girlfriend at the time. We lived long distance from one another. I was in Pennsylvania. She was in Massachusetts. She was a member of First Parish in Cambridge. And whenever I visited her, I would go to the UU church that she went to. And at first I thought, this is really interesting and a little strange. But I'm going to stick it out. Something might be happening here. And a whole lot did. I got really connected. I actually got more connected to my Christianity and also more connected to my Buddhism through Unitarian Universalism. And I was deeply grateful for that because that was not welcome really in the church that I was a part of before. So that's how I came to be connected to UU churches. And I started it in 2010, and by 2013, I was on staff at First Parish in Cambridge. And I've pretty much been working for Unitarian Universalism ever since. All right, let's see. What do we have here? Okay, this is good. You guys, I feel like you all are on the same page, and so you all are ready for some things, I feel like. This is another question. So when we look at our congregation, let me read the sort of the beginning. We value diversity and we welcome people of all races, ethnicity, sexual orientation, etc. This is said in some form in the words of welcome each Sunday. So when we look at our congregation and see that it is not as diverse as we imagine it could be or want it to be, have we failed? Is this goal ever attainable? How do we balance this vision with celebrating and honoring who we are now? And I actually didn't, for some reason, I accidentally left off who shared this question. So if you want to say who it was, that's fine. If not, that's fine too. Does it mean that you failed if the place isn't as diverse as you imagine it could be or you want it to be? Speaking as someone who tends toward hope and hopefulness, just naming who I am, that is going to impact how I answer these questions. My answer is no, you haven't failed. It just means that you got a lot of work to do. That's all. It just means that there's a lot of work to be done. The acknowledgement is actually a really great first step. Because there are a lot of places that are not going to acknowledge it. They don't want to talk about it. Okay? And won't. And unless someone sort of, and even when folks may try and quote unquote force people to talk about it, if folks don't want to be more welcoming, then they're just not going to be. You have to really want it and believe in it, understand why it matters. So acknowledgement is a great first step. A second step is to get clear about why diversity matters to you as a community, right? I've done consulting with congregations all the time who say so much that they want a more diverse community, and I ask them why, and they're like, "Thank you. I don't know." Or because we just want to see more Black people. Well, friend, that's actually not a reason. I don't have a problem being honest with people. Most of you know this by now, right? Like, then that's actually not a good reason. Go back and think about a better reason. People have to be clear about why it matters. And the answer to that question will help you know what's next. Thank you. You're very good at this, and I am really not. You're very good at keeping me on task, Eleanor. I'm gonna ask one more question that I already have, and then I know there was somebody else in the back. What are the songs that you most want to hear at church? Every single one. I want music in church that is spiritually grounding, and uplifting and challenging, whatever the genre, and whatever the language. That's what I want in church all the time. I love it when soloists sing. I love it when whole choirs sing. I love choir singing. I've been in choirs for many years. Choir singing is my happy place. I love it when groups like the Spirits get together and sing. Can I just tell y'all that this has been one of my greatest joys about being here? Can I just say that? Y'all make me happy every time. You really do. The instrumentation, the accompaniment that goes along with that, the piano, the voices, it is multifaceted and it is really beautiful. I like music of all kinds: pop, rock, jazz, gospel, you name it. I want it in church because I think all of it has the capacity to be uplifting and healing and holding. I was a part of Sanctuary Boston, which is an emerging UU community in the Boston area. I was the worship director for a year, and on the music team before that. And let me tell you, when we did every single kind of music you can imagine, we did. And this was a UU congregation. Okay, we did a service once called That Anger. That was the theme. Because how hard is it to talk about our anger? But that was the theme of the service, was that anger. And one of the songs that we did was a Rage Against the Machine song. Does anybody know Rage Against the Machine? Rage Against the Machine that music is intense. It is hard. And sometimes it's hard to listen to. There's cursing and all. It is hard music. But you know what? It is real. It is heart-filled. And we did a Rage Against the Machine song, which the minister of that congregation actually didn't appreciate. If I could just say that out loud. Because Sanctuary, thank you, met in 2 churches in Boston, and First Parish in Cambridge was one of them. And the minister there did not like that we were going to sing that song. And I said, this speaks to where people's hearts are. So we're actually going to sing it. And I just encourage you not to come if you don't want to hear it. And we did it, and it was deeply moving by the time we were done. So I think all music can be in church. I really do. If done well, if done carefully, and with deep care and awareness, we'll let the parents know that there's going to be cursing. If you want to take your kid out, you can do that. And they're like, no, they hear us curse at home all the time. It's like, okay, great, we're good. We can go ahead. So what kind of music? What songs? All the songs. All the songs. Okay, I saw another hand up. Whose hand did I see? There's someone in the back who is, actually, I don't see her anymore. Okay. Thank you so much, Jim. Jim's got a microphone. See? This is what I'm talking about. Good stuff. Does anyone else have a question? Yeah. Matt? Hold on just a second.
Will you stay with us? And if not, will you come back?
You know,
At least to visit.
actually, thank you for that question. I appreciate. I had a feeling that question might come up. I actually cannot stay with you. This is, and it was actually a very, 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 very hard decision to not stay, because you all are magnificent and wonderful in all of the ways that you are, and there are deep challenges and deep work that is needed that I love to do. Right? All of that is true. And I have a wife and kid at home, and a mom and two sisters, all of whom miss me and make me know that in all sorts of ways every single day. So I will be heading back. My last Sunday is next Sunday, August 28th. So for those of you who are here, those of you who are home, know that I will be with us again to preach next Sunday. And you know what? I will be happy to come back and preach another time. I will be excited for that. And you know, I'm not one of those folks who likes to say that I know exactly what life is going to bring. I don't. I'm always open to what life brings. So if it is meant for me to make my way back here at any point, I will trust it, because I trust the direction of the wind. Thank you for asking. I saw a hand. Oh, okay, got it. Thank you. I like that. Thank you, Gabe. Let's see. What else do we have? What time is it? Can someone give me a time check? Okay. 10 after 11? Great. That's perfect. I'm going to answer 2 more questions. All right? The first is, several folks asked me this. What do you make of the culture of Hawaii? Hawaii is beautiful and complicated. Beautiful and complicated. It's probably one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. And I am grateful, so very grateful, that I can sit at my desk and stare at the ocean. That is not something that folks get to have everywhere. The colonization, the colonialism, all of that it took to get Hawaii to be where it is noticeable everywhere. You see it everywhere. You can't not see it. If you're not seeing it, and you're working really hard not to pay attention. And that part is actually really hard. I learned quite a bit about the history of Hawaii as I was coming. And I have had moments of recognizing and acknowledging my complicity in all of this. Because I'm like, wow, I have a relationship with a church that could help me live here for 2 months. That is a great and wonderful gift. And it is also deeply complicated and complex and a little ugly. All of those things can be true simultaneously. And so the culture has been, and at the same time, the spirit of aloha is real. And like, I feel that so deeply with folks in particular spaces, right? So it's beautiful and it's hard. That's been my sense of the culture here. And the best I think I can do is, especially as someone who is a short-term resident, is to hold all of that with as much care as I can. Thank you. Yeah, there were a number of people who asked me that question. So I was like, I need to answer that. And the last question I will ask, which was honestly probably my favorite question from Martina, and you'll know why in a minute. Well, it's really 2 questions, and I'm going to say both of them. How did becoming a parent affect the way you view and practice ministry? Or how are you different as a result of being a parent? These are my favorite questions because being a parent is my favorite thing in the world. It's my favorite thing in the world. There's nothing in the world better than being a parent. I wanted to be a parent from the time I was a child. And just so you're clear, I'm going to put this down because I don't need it. And just so you're clear about how important it is, when I was growing up as a little girl child, I wanted to be a parent, but I always imagined myself being somebody's dad. Always. Never in my imaginings was I somebody's mom. I was always somebody's dad, and that was confusing for a 5-year-old or for a 6-year-old. It was confusing. It wasn't hard, it was confusing. And I always thought to myself, well, that's never really going to happen, I guess. So I just kind of walked around with a lot of sadness about the fact that I couldn't be somebody's dad. So understand that when Zora calls me every day and says, "Hi, Daddy," it is the best thing on the planet, because the life that I have been able to live, thankfully, I have had family and friends who have supported me in my transition. I get to be somebody's dad. The only thing that I wanted in life as a child. I get to be that every single day. And so, in ministry, I believe that anything is possible. Anything is possible. If there's anything in this place that you don't believe is possible, put that away right now. Okay? I was 32 years old when I said to somebody for the first time, actually, I'm a man and my name is Mykal. It took me 20-some years to get there, but I got there. And now I have a 6-year-old. Anything is possible in ministry. Anything is possible here. Does everybody hear me? Anything is possible here. Whatever you dream, whatever you believe, whatever you need, it is possible. Believe it. Because I could never have imagined at 6 that I would have a 6-year-old right now as the person I was called to be in the world. The other thing that I will say about being a parent, and if Lelena's watching, she's going to be laughing because she knows exactly what I'm about to say. I struggle with messiness. I struggle with it. I really do. And I didn't know how much I struggled with messiness until I became a parent. Zora, poor thing, she would be however many months old, and she's trying to learn how to eat, and there's food everywhere. And I'm trying to wipe her face every 5 seconds, and it really doesn't work, does it, parents? It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And Elena would look at me, and she's like, "Can you stop? Can you just let her be messy?" But no, stop. Let her be messy. And so I have had to learn to breathe through the messiness. Churches are messy. If you hadn't figured that out already. We can get through the messiness. And sometimes it will take more mess to undo the first bit of mess. The messiness is all a part of our humanity. It's a part of our lives. It doesn't go away because we walk through those doors or because we come through those doors however we come through them. But we can move through messiness as long as we're working together. Work together, friends. It's worth it. And there might be more mess later because we're human. But we can move our way through it. And that has been a great gift of my parenting. To get that clarity, because I really didn't have it before I was cleaning her face, filled with food and everything else. And I still need work. I still get upset when she walks away from the table and doesn't clean her hands. I do. It's just real. I'm like, how many times do I have to say this? I might have to say it every day. And that's okay too. That's okay too. This was a great joy for me. Thank you for asking your questions.